Detroit and Jack, I have like a question. Like, you know how Jake
What's
said
that?
that the common property was like grabbing for like the hand.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Can't you? So let's say that the Athari
Which
or the Salafi say like when they say God has a hand, they mean he has a faculty of manipulating matter. Is there gonna be some further problem with that, or is that gonna be
I don't see why there should be a further problem
like
there.
like when I was asking him questions, I wasn't trying to raise a critique. I was sort of like
No,
trying
I
to
know.
like dig out information to later analyze to see if there's like an
I mean,
argument.
maybe Detroit. It doesn't seem to me problematic. Maybe Detroit can see
Right.
a
So if he says
potential
like the common,
problem
if he
there.
says like hand doesn't mean the same thing, but the common property is the faculty of manipulating, you think he's answered his burden, right?
I don't see really where I would push back there.
Well,
So you don't think that there's some specific problem with saying
Not that I can. Not that I could see.
yeah, I don't. I'm just willing to grant that like this inter-Sunni dispute probably is not gonna raise some kind of a logical problem. At least not what it seems, right, Jack? And presumably Detroit, you don't see like a problem with the approach of appealing to like properties like manipulation.
Yeah, I'm not really sure that there's anything further I would say there.
Like the Athari or the Salafi pers. Why didn't you like pick what like Malikis are, like the Ashari view?
Um, well, that's like a long conversation, but
Oh,
I
you
have
don't
a
like
lot of problems.
occasionalism or like atomism or something? Is that like the stuff, or was there like
I
something
think
about Atharism you
occasionalism.
liked?
Um,
Uh,
yeah,
Muslim.
but you asked about the different schools. I mean, I have a lot of problems with the Ashari school, and I think the Athari school um, solves a lot of those problems. So one example is I think occasionalism is just dumb. That's one thing. I also have a big problem with their theory on morality. What else? Their position,
But when you
even
say their
on
theory, are you talking about like the anti-realist stuff, or like the divine command theory stuff?
both. Yeah,
Oh, you don't believe in divine command theory?
not in their understanding of it. No.
Okay, you have a problem with their ethics, their meta-ethics, and their like occasionalism stuff. Okay. What about like the interpretation of the Quran?
Well, not only that. So also their understanding of the attributes and like divine predication, forgetting even the so-called controversial attributes or things of that nature, even things like knowledge, power, etc. I think their view on that is just ridiculous. So, I mean, I could explain that. I don't know how much you know about it, but yeah, there's a lot of reasons, I guess.
All right, I see. Okay, so you disagree that there's a problem between affirming transcendence and affirming like hand and feet and face and descendants.
Um, yeah, I think it's going to turn a lot on the theory of language, and I think that's really neglected in the article. So I don't know how familiar you are with Ibn Taymiyyah's theory on a lot of these points. But if you're
So
interested,
Farouk's
there's some
point is
stuff
sort of like
that's been written in English about this. So there's an article that compares Ibn Taymiyyah's theory with Wittgenstein.
oh, I know
Um,
that paper. I've actually gone through that paper. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's decent. And then there's a little bit more detailed explanation of it.
It's by Rahman
Um,
Mustafa, right? That's the one you have in mind.
yeah, that's right. But there's one that goes into a little bit more detail. Let me see. I forget the name of the title of the book here. What is it called? It's called Medieval Islamic Pragmatics, Sunni Legal Theorists' Models of Textual Communication. It's by Muhammad M. Yunus Ali, and it's published by Routledge. So he has a section in there, which is chapter 4, and it goes through Ibn Taymiyyah's contextual theory of interpretation in a lot more
But you
detail than
rely
that
on
article.
like Western. So do you rely on like Western studies of Ibn Taymiyyah because, or do you
No,
like read like the Majma al-Fatawa and his other works?
no, I read the primary sources with other people
Well,
that are
well, you can read
more.
Arabic.
Yeah, I can read Arabic, but not only that, so I study with people who are much more knowledgeable on it than me, and they read it along with me and explain the points.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I didn't know you could read Arabic. How long have you been a Muslim? It's like 3-4 years, right?
No, about 10 years.
Oh, 10 years. Okay, I see. What was it that I asked you about? Yeah, I asked you like because like even if you read Arabic, like Ibn Taymiyyah is sort of like hard to read. At least like his certain of his
Yeah, he
works are
is.
like
Yeah,
sort of like hard to read.
it is very hard to read also because he wrote so much, and he wasn't very systematic in his way of writing. So a lot of topics that he wrote about, they're kind of scattered throughout his various works, and you have to know where they are to sort of compile them and go through them to really understand what he's trying to get at with many things. So yeah, I agree with that.
Right. But like, how do you? I don't know if this is like a good argument or not. I mean, again, I haven't like engaged with this scholarship because I don't think it's taken seriously in the West. But if, like under your view, you're gonna say that God has a hand, but you're not gonna provide any semantical content of hand. Is that correct?
No.
So you're like in the Matrix again.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you need to get better internet.
Yeah, I'll send you the link,
But but
Jake.
but like Jake, do you like when you say like God has like hands and stuff like hand there? Do you take it to have like the natural language definition, or do you take it to have some other definition, or do you take it to have some obscure definition that is opaque to you?
What do you mean by the natural language definition?
Oh, just like the dictionary definition, like
Oh,
the
no,
everyday Joe means by the
no,
word hand.
no,
Right. So you don't mean what the everyday Joe means by hand.
no. Um, so my position, which is similar to Ibn Taymiyyah's, is that the meaning of a sentence or proposition is going to be based on the intent of the speaker. So,
Well, that's not Wittgenstein's position, but yeah, I agree. By the way, that's my view as well. I'm like intentionalist about meaning as well.
yeah. So, if you go through the book I mentioned earlier, it might interest you, or maybe not. It's whatever. But,
I mean, I have
so
like a million
yeah.
books to read, so like it's not gonna be like a top priority. But like I'm interested
No,
in like
I know.
hearing
I'm
just
just
you
saying.
like giving it to me in like a piecemeal because you probably like read the book and like this is like your theology, so you
Yeah.
could like give me at least like a
Yeah. No.
piecemeal
I don't.
introduction.
Yeah. So sorry. What was your? Okay, the
No,
dictionary
what I'm
definition.
asking is like so me and you we probably agree on like at least semantics. Like when I utter like a sentence, what that sentence expresses is going to be a proposition, but what proposition it expresses is going to be determined by my intention.
That's
Or
right.
it's going to express my intention, and my intention is propositional in the sense that the content of my intention is a proposition. So I think me and you agree on that view.
Correct.
And so we don't take like some kind of a Wittgensteinian view that meaning is used, or some kind of a postmodernist view that like meaning is somehow like always in flux or something, right? So like we agree on that like view. Now,
Yeah, but I
when Allah says, for example, that sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, so for example, internally from your view, the what the Quran expresses is going to be the intention of Allah. Now, when Allah says He has a hand, or like a shin, or like a face, or like He descends, or like He flies, or something. Well, I don't know if it ever says He flies, but it does says He descends. But I guess if He descends, He got to like elevate as well. When He says those things, what do you take Allah's intention is expressing in those sentences, in those hadith, and in those ayahs, under your view?
Yeah, but I mean, you said a lot there, so each one
Or
of
just
them
take
is going to
any
have to.
single example. I don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna have to deal with them individually, right? So, I think that's right. That the theory is going to be based on the intent of the speaker. In this case, it's supposed to be God. So, my view, going along with Ibn Taymiyyah, is that you have to not only look at the word, but you have to look at the context of the verse itself, the surrounding verses, the entire Qur'an, and the Sunnah as well, to really
Yeah, but you do that under
understand.
any view.
Yeah,
Like
but
any hermeneutics is going to take those things into considerations, right? In Islam, at least, like the Asharis and the Maturidis and the Shia and the Ismailis are not going to disregard the historical context and the Asbab al-Nuzul and the Lugha and the grammar and all that stuff, right?
yeah, but their way of going about it is not the same. So, for example, they'll say things like the apparent meaning is X. So if you look at like Arazi's theory of interpretation, and many Asharis have this sort of twofold
Wait,
understanding
who's
of
did you say Ar-Razi or did you say somebody else?
yeah, Arazi, yeah.
Oh, you mean Fakhruddin Ar-Razi or do you mean somebody else?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So if you look at how he views language, he'll explain what the quote unquote apparent meaning, or sometimes said the literal meaning of the text is, and give it a particular meaning of it, and then say, in the case of when it's going to be problematic, at least according to him and his background metaphysics, they're going to do ta'wil to basically reduce it to some type of metaphorical meaning. Now that's vastly different and a different type of process that is going on than somebody like Ibn Taymiyyah that rejects what's called the haqiqi majaz distinction. And so for him, all language is literal or apparent. There is no metaphor in that sense, right? So I think it's a bit more complicated than the way that you're expressing it. But yeah, theoretically, each school of interpretation is meant to, or at least they should be attempting to, take all of these things into consideration. But my problem is that many Asharis will say things like, "Well, the apparent meaning is actually a kufri meaning." I just think that that's problematic. I mean, they'll admit this. Many of the mutakallimin will admit this. So even to the point that they'll say that the awam understand the text in a certain way that is based on what they're considering the apparent meaning, which is actually kufr, right? So, yeah, I mean, to me, there's a lot of
Right.
problems with the way that the...
But you don't agree with Ibn Taymiyyah's hermeneutics, right?
In terms of what? Sorry.
Because you said earlier, you said to me you agree with the intentionalist view of meaning, right? That what a sentence mean
Yeah.
is what the speaker intended, right? So, for example, if I utter a sentence but I intended a quote, for example, I'm speaking in quotes, for example. Though I say, like, for example, the milk is in the fridge, what I'm actually intending, for example, we're at like war or something, what I intend is like the enemy is near, go take cover, and there's some other place. And let's say just like you have some kind of a specific dictionary or something to decode that, right? So like the apparent meaning they're given like natural language or something is gonna be like there's actual milk in the fridge, but the intention of the speaker is going to be to speak in codes, and so what this sentence actually means is going to be different from what the apparent meaning given natural language is. And so there's going to be distinction between apparent or literal interpretation and the actual meaning of this sentence.
Well, I mean, so I didn't. I'm at work, by the way, so I'm trying to like multitask. I didn't really
Oh
hear
yeah, we can have this
the full
discussion some other
example.
time if it's not suited. I was just curious about your view. I'm not like trying to like raise some critiques or something. I'm just
No, no. I mean, it's fine.
because it's
I don't
like
mind
rare
talking
to
about it.
meet like I mean I know you're just like an undergrad or something, but it's like rare to meet like a Athari who engages in philosophy or something. Usually it's like theology or something.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, if you're, I don't know
And you
how.
seem like very fairly familiar with like Western and analytic philosophy, like semantical theories
Yeah, I
and
mean,
metaethics and others. Yeah.
my
So I'm
background is
just
in
curious how you
analytic
hold to
philosophy.
Atharism given your like familiarity with this view. So I'm just trying to like understand that. I'm not trying to raise like a critique of your view. At least not yet though.
Yeah, well, I think actually that's maybe partly the reason why I'm an Atheist is because my background is actually in analytic philosophy. So I have a bachelor's in philosophy, and that was sort of formative in some of my thinking. It's around the same time when I became Muslim. So I think a lot of the ideas that I have based on certain things and influence from analytic philosophy are more amenable to the Athari creed rather than the other views. But that's, I mean, that's a whole nother
Would you
story.
say
That's
you've
like a long
worked out those
conversation.
views entirely, or do you say it's in process? Because I remember last time, me and you. Let me remember if I remember the topic correctly. We were discussing sort of like theories of reference and whether or not the Muslim and the Christian worships the same God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you sort of like said ultimately it was sort of like more of an intuition, and you haven't gone through like the Quranic passages and seen how whatever
Oh,
theory of
yeah. I
reference
mean,
you
my
hold to,
views
they will
are.
be. So like, are you saying like your views aren't like fully worked out and they're still like in process, but these are like the current intuitions that you have of how your views are going to end up in, or would you say these views are like worked out yet?
So it's kind of a little bit of both. So I think I have certain views worked out that are maybe more fundamental, at least in my thinking, that more line up with the Athari creed. And then I have other considerations, obviously, that I'm working through. So constantly rethinking my positions and um,
But like on the
trying to,
semantics of like, so I didn't mean to cut you off if you weren't done.
yeah.
Just let me know if
No,
I
it's
cut you
fine.
off.
Go ahead.
But at least like, see, I don't make the distinction between like hand and feet and face and like other attributes like mercy or something. Because I think ultimately these things have either like a natural language meaning or they're gonna have a univocal. I mean, you're familiar with like the Aquinas tritype understanding of univocal, analogical, or equivocal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So like, either they're gonna be univocal, but that's not what the Athari wants to say. But that's what the Ashari is accusing. That's what the Ashari, Maturidi, Mu'tazili, the Shi'i, and the Ibadi, and everybody else is accusing the Athari of doing, is of the univocal reading. So that's not the reading, but the Athari himself wants to reject the Athari. Sorry, wants to reject the univocal position. Um, but
Yeah, I
if you
mean,
hold
you.
to like an analogical position, I want to know what the common property is going to be. And if you
Yeah,
hold to
so
like an
that's.
equivocal view, I want to know what the definition of the terms you're applying are, because then they're going to mean something completely different to what we mean by like hand and face and shin and descend and ascend and all that
Um,
stuff.
yeah, so you. Okay, I'm trying to remember because you brought up a few points, but yeah, so There's something.
A single point, just the semantics of descend, hand, feet, and all
Oh,
those
you're so wondering
attributes.
my view if I'm settled on it. So, I would say relatively, but yeah, I'm open to critiques on certain things. That's
No, but when you say, for
certainly
example,
true.
God has hands, would you say you wouldn't say that's like univocal, obviously, right? You reject that, like
No, and
you're
also,
like you reject like the mujassima position, obviously, right?
yeah. So I mean,
You're right. So it's not univocal. So is
well,
it equivocal or is it analogical?
yeah, but so there's also some assumptions behind the question, right? You also have to keep in mind that this tradition, at least the Taymi tradition, Ibn Taymiyyah's tradition, is he's also a nominalist. So you have to keep in mind certain
Oh, we can grant
metaphysical
nominalism. I don't
considerations.
mind that.
Yeah, but I'm
Personally, I'm like
saying,
a Platonist, but like I can grant like nominalism for the sake of this discussion. I just want to understand your view. I'm not trying to critique it.
yeah, I'm just saying when you combine that with this semantic theory, at the very least, it has an entirely different picture than what a lot of people are claiming and what I think low-level critiques are based on. So
Right, but you
that's what
still
I'm trying to say.
even given nominalism, you still agree that there's going to be truth values. I mean, like you don't reject the excluded middle, right?
No, no,
Right. So there's still going to be truth values of like predications. If I say
yeah,
God has, right. So like, and then I'm just asking, what's the semantics behind the predicate?
yeah. So, and this is another, I think, somewhat distinctive
We don't
feature.
need to like have any ontology of the predicate. That's fine. Like we don't need to ontologize anything about like predicate.
Yeah.
Forget
So I've,
property realism. Like let's just throw that into the garbage bin. Like I'm just curious about the semantics aspect of this, not the ontological aspect of this.
yeah. So semantic
Someone
aspect
say
is
that
that.
they accept excluded middle? God damn.
Well, you reject exclusion
Oh,
into the trade?
Of course. Like what?
Yeah, the trade is like retarded, Jake. So don't mind him. He's smarter than me, but he's retarded. But that's like understandable and under paraconsistent logic.
um.
Yeah, parakeet.
So okay, yeah. Back to the question. So so another distinctive feature, at least in my mind, is that of Ibn Taymiyyah's thought is that he affirms what's called the qadr mushtarak, which is basically,
Well, let me try to translate that from as like my shitty Arabic. Qadr is like predestination. Mushtarak is shared, right?
well, it's meant to be like a shared. I don't know how you would
But I got the
translate,
words
like a
correct,
shared
right?
aspect.
A shared predestination, right? At
Yeah,
least
but
normally that's what it means, right?
um, it's meant to be like a shared. Yeah, if you're talking about from predestination,
Right.
because the word is related, but it's in this context is meant to be like, I don't know how you would translate it, a shared
Mushtarak
aspect.
means shared, like
Yeah, yeah.
right.
There's a similarity, right? So, whereas
And
a
qadar is
lot of
like destination, right?
yeah, but in this sense, it's talking about like a measure,
Now
right?
I understand. Like I always point out because like a lot of like poor Christian scholarship on the critiquing Islam, they don't make the distinction between the lughawi and the sharhi definition of words,
That's right. Yeah. So
right? Right.
there's gonna be like some type of similarity or what you're driving at, like
Isn't that just
a common.
is this just going to be like analogy, like what Aquinas
Well,
holds?
there's gonna be a common aspect to it. So like
Yeah. So what's the common property then?
yeah. So then when it comes to each attribute, obviously it's going to be different depending on what the attribute is. But the idea is that whatever's true of one attribute is going to be true of the other. So presumably you're going to have to apply the
Why does
theory.
that? Why is that? Why can't like one be like have one common property and the other have another common property?
No, it can. I am saying that, but I'm saying
Right.
in
So the
terms
common
of
property
okay,
doesn't have
maybe
to be true across the board, like on all of these contentious attributions, right?
um, I don't think you understand what I was trying to say. So
okay, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, what I'm saying is, if you have that idea that the qadr mushtarak has to exist, or you're applying it to one attribute, saying, for example, say yad Allah, it's going to be the same thing for any other attribute. It's no different. And this is one of Ibn Taymiyyah's criticisms of the Asharis, is that whatever is true of one attribute is true of another in the sense that I'm describing it now. I'm not saying
Wait,
like
let me just ask a
knowledge.
clarification question. So like I'm not misunderstanding what you're saying. So like when I ask you like the tripartite distinction made by like Aquinas between equivocal, univocal, and analogical, and I said if it's analogical, there has to be a common property. Are you saying that like if you give a common property for like hand, that common property has to be the same in the case of like descendants and shin
No,
and like face?
no.
That's not what you're saying now, right?
No, no, no. I'm saying
Okay, okay.
if you're committed to the idea that there is a common property, then that's going to apply for every other attribute. But
Oh,
what
just the
the
notion that
said
there is a
common,
common property.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
But what
okay,
the
now I
said
understand.
common property or property is obviously going to differ. Otherwise, that would be like
Okay, okay, now
some
I
very
understand.
weird
Yeah, yeah,
theory.
that's obviously, or else they wouldn't be
Yeah,
unlogical. Yeah, no, we're in agreement. Yeah.
but I'm saying this is not the case really for the Ashari view. But I mean, that's a whole nother story. So
But the Asharis take them to be um, equivocal. They take them to be metaphors, right?
No, but I'm saying forget about the more controversial attributes. Let's stick with something like knowledge, for example. Um, the Ashari view is oh, it's pretty bizarre to me anyway. But it's basically the idea that there's no similarity because their understanding of Laysa Kamithlihi Shay is obviously vastly different, to the point that there's actually no similarity between the sifa or the attribute itself and uh, what we ascribe to in creation with that particular name. There's no similarity, no common property whatsoever. What they say is there's a similarity between the entailment of the attribute itself of God and the entailment of the attribute with that name in creation.
Isn't it just
Does
to
that
hold
make
them
sense?
to
Are you
be
following me?
isn't it just to hold them to be equivocal? Or am I missing something?
Yeah, but it's so they're not really, in that case, they're not, what they're trying to do is they're trying to avoid any similarity between the attribute and creation, right? I mean, that's
Right. So
obvious.
like in the sense that when they say Laysa Kamithlihi Shay, there's nothing like him. The way they
Yeah.
interpret it is that not only in an ontological sense, but even in a semantical sense. That like even whatever meaning you give to one, you can't give to the other, and that there has to be like a complete separation. There can't be like any form of comparison. Like
Yeah, so
under any understanding, whatever, whether it's ontological, semantical, or whatever, there can't be a common property. That's the Ashari. That's what you're saying of the Ashari view, right?
correct. And the common property is going to be cashed out in terms of the entailment of the attribute rather than the attribute itself. Now, I don't really think that makes much sense, but so that's kind of my problem. But
Wait, are you
um,
saying that they still hold that the entailment is going to give a common property, or are you saying
yeah, so
there's
there's
going
a
to be,
commonality.
regardless, there's not going to be any commonality?
No, there's going to be commonality in the entailment of the attribute. So let me give like an example, right? So whatever God's knowledge turns out to be on their view, which they're pretty much completely agnostic about, what they describe as the attribute itself is really just what they would call like a um, certain lawazim. I don't know if you're familiar with the terminology, but entailment or entailments of the attribute itself. And so what they want to say is that what they're actually attributing or describing the attribute or giving semantic content to the attribute is really not to the attribute itself. It's to some entailment of the attribute. And they'll say the same thing about things with that same name in creation, to the
Okay, I see. So you
extent
want to
that,
say that like the attributes, the entailments of the attribute and of the creation are going to share a common property,
correct,
but not
but
the
not the
very
attribute
attributes.
itself.
But okay, okay, I see. So
Yeah.
so So let me just repeat one more time, just to understand you, because just to make sure I don't misrepresent you, because you said like I misunderstood you once, and I don't like to I don't like to misunderstand any
No, I don't
person.
think it was
What
intentional.
you're saying is like under the Ashari view, what they're saying is that the views themselves don't have a common property, but the entailments of the views have common properties.
Correct.
And I think there's like a problem with that, because deductions, because like by entailments you mean like actual logical entailments, you don't mean some other notion of entailments, right?
Right.
Right, but like entailments, I
Having
take.
entailments that share a common
Right,
property
hold on,
is a
hold on,
common
hold on. I'm
property.
gonna make that. I was a critique I'm gonna make, the Troyan.
Well, I
Oh my
know that.
god.
That's my whole
You just
problem
ruined
with the
it for me, the
theory.
Troyan. Oh my
I'm
god.
sorry.
See why I hate this
Yeah.
guy, Jake? I hate this guy, the Troyan. He
I'm
just
just
ruined it
saying.
for
I
me.
know
Yeah,
the argument.
Detroiter is
That's why I
forever
don't.
just a spoiler. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. So
That's why
like
I
Yeah.
don't.
you understood the critique that I was going for right now. But
ruiner.
but
Yeah,
you're gonna say that's
that's
a
why I don't
critique of
hold
the
the view.
Ashari view, not of your view, right?
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying. That's why I don't hold that view. That's what I was trying to
Right.
explain.
So now
Yeah.
the Ashari view doesn't understand that like deductions are non-amplitive. So let's throw the Ashari view into the garbage bin. Now, your view. When you say Allah has a hand, and we say that Jake has a hand, now hand in both of those sentences, are they univocal, equivocal, or analogical?
No, they're analogical.
Right. So what's the common property under your view?
Under what? The hand, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to look at the text, but to really get a clear meaning of it.
But you
But
have
it's gonna.
looked at the text, right?
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, so we can
I
skip
was
to
just
the answer,
explaining.
right? We don't need to do the quiz. We can just skip to the we can just skip
No,
to the
not.
like the answer sheet, right?
Yeah. So it's basically that which has the ability to grasp or manipulate matter, things of that sort, which are
So
described
when
in
you
the
say
text.
hand, all you mean is like ability to manipulate matter.
Well, no, but he could mean that's a
Um,
common property. It doesn't have to be the meaning of hand.
No, sorry. Like the when Allah has a hand and I have a hand, at least the common property is that both can manipulate matter. But that's not gonna exhaust the meaning of Allah's hand. Is that what you mean, Detroit?
Well, he's saying that that's, yeah.
yeah, the idea is
It
that there's an
Right.
aspect. There's an aspect. Um, there's an aspect of God by which He does that.
Right, but when Allah manipulates matter, He does that by His hands. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in this context, yeah.
Okay, okay, I see. So when Allah says He has hands, um, maybe we don't have a full analysis of that thing. That's like fine because we don't have full analysis of like existence or like odds or other concepts that are like
It's the same thing for other
primitives. But we know
attributes.
what they entail. We know what they like at least entail. For example, a lot of people hold that like odds entail can. For example, you hold that like at least the hand of Allah entails the ability to manipulate matter. Would that be like a fair representation of your view?
Yeah, I mean, we can maybe say more things about it, but the idea is that there's going to be some common level of similarity, at least in the semantic content, and that's one of them. Yeah.
Okay, I see. So at least when Allah says He has hands, what you can interpret is Allah has something by which He manipulates matter. Would that be fair?
Yeah, or
Fair interpretation?
grasps, or yeah.
Okay, I see. I see.
I can add something here. I'm actually a Muslim as well.
Go
So
ahead.
But by
yeah,
the way, let
we
me
do.
just say one thing before you get started.
Yeah, sure.
I'm at work. Like I said, I'm multitasking, but this is kind of slowing me down a little bit. So I'm gonna have to put it on pause for now. But we can continue later, maybe.
No, we can continue this some other time. I was just like interested in like your view. But I
I'm just
appreciate Jake
saying.
that you like answered my questions and like we engaged. Like that was.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
So let's say that the Athari
Which
or the Salafi say like when they say God has a hand, they mean He has a faculty of manipulating matter. Is there gonna be some further problem with that, or is that gonna be like
I don't see why there should be a further problem
okay?
there. So you don't think that there's some specific problem with saying
Not
that?
that I could see.
Yeah, I'm just willing to grant that like this inter-Sunni dispute probably is not gonna raise some kind of a logical problem.